Welcome to Our Girl Relationships. We talk about the problems people face in their day to day lives. Let's start with the video. My best friend, Victoria, 25, and I, female 23, have always been into pranking each other. We've been friends since childhood, and ever since then, this was the nature of our relationship. For the post, it is also important to note that Victoria and I both met our partners during undergraduate school. I met Alexandra and Victoria met Henry, and as it turned out, Alexandra was much like Victoria. And when it came to sense of humor, he was a prankster and we mess around with each other. This wasn't the case for Henry, though, because he was quite opposite to not only me and Alexandra, but Victoria as well. He was the serious, quiet, and shy kind. The one who didn't take jokes all too well, but that was just the case initially because eventually, as time passed by, he came along and started adjusting with us. All the while, we tried to blend in with his personality. And just like that, time went by and we all became good friends. So much so that Alexandra and I got the opportunity to become a part of the wedding party. All seemed well, and I was grateful that I made these amazing friends and thought this was a forever thing until this happened. Well, you see, it's currently been 3 years since Victoria and Henry had been married. So, as you all might have imagined, Victoria and Henry had become closer on a completely different level, but that just didn't seem to be the case because as time passed by, not only I, but Alexandra could notice the two of them getting distant. This was confirmed to us by Victoria as she ranted to me about how she didn't understand why Henry was becoming more and more distant with her. She even cried in my arms as I comforted her, and after telling her that she always had my shoulder to lean on. I thought that was it, and I moved away from that situation as Victoria never brought it up. So one day, Victoria pulled a prank on me. This prank was nothing out of the ordinary. She had taped something to the bottom of the mouse, making me unable to use it while I was working. Well, although it slightly annoyed me, I wasn't going crazy over it and just pretended to get really angry. Well, it was during this time that Victoria went along with it and started saying that she would do anything for my forgiveness. And boy, saying that I regret telling her this would be an understatement because this statement was quite literally going to turn her life upside down, and it did. I was in a really playful mood at that point, and to mess with her more, not keeping the fact that Henry and her were going through a rough patch, I decided to tell her to do her best prank on him. She seemed a little anxious hearing that, and honestly, I wouldn't have minded if she didn't do it, but she seemed very excited, and that had me enthusiastic as well, and all until the next time when I saw this. Well, it was about 6 a.m. in the morning as I had woken up to pack lunch for Alexander. We have a ritual after that where we grab breakfast together while watching the news. So, as usual, that's what we did. I put his lunchbox on the table and sat on the dining table to grab myself some coffee. Just as I was doing that, I heard Victoria's name. I turned my back to hear what the talk was about because, of course, if I'm going to hear my best friend's full name being called out, it's going to take my attention. Well, I wish I didn't because I sat there, stunned, as I heard the local news reporter talk about how an accident had been caused in our locality, and although no one was hurt, there were damages done to a few houses. I was dumbfounded as I saw the car in the video footage belonged to Henry, and even more shocked as they showed another footage of Victoria entering into Henry's car and messing with its gears. The news outlet talked about how Victoria gave her statement that it was a prank and how she had never intended to let Henry drive the car, stating that it was the reason that she messed with it to begin with. As soon as Alexandra and I saw this news, we immediately called up Henry, who didn't pick up our call. We called Victoria, obviously not expecting a response, and that is what happened. It had been about an hour since Alexandra decided to take a leave from work because I had begun panicking. All until I received a single text from Victoria's mom saying how I was wrong for tempting her to go past this lane while her marriage was already suffering. I knew what was about to happen. I knew it was about time that I was going to get blamed for everything that ever happened, and that is what I saw happening. One after the other, as more and more of Victoria's family and friends started texting me, blaming me for everything that happened. I think I hit the worst when my own family got the news and started sending me texts talking about how disappointed it was for them to see me ruining my best friend's marriage. I knew that was the last straw and broke down, but until then, Alexander received a message from Henry telling us that he would meet us tomorrow to discuss everything. That is all the message said. He did not express his anger or sadness in this text, leaving me more anxious and confused than ever. This is where I am currently, in a state of conflict and unsure what to do, as my best friend's life is obviously being uprooted and the cause being a silly little joke made by me. I feel stupid and like an idiot for saying what I did, not taking into consideration everything that had been going on in their relationship. Although Alexandra says it's not my mistake, the messages sent by my own family along with Victoria's don't help, which is why I'm here, asking for advice, judgment. Is there anything I can do to help Victoria? AITA for suggesting my BFF prank her husband, not knowing that she was going to take it to another level and cause him to get into an accident? Hi all, here's a small update. Things took a turn for the worse as Victoria's parents came over to our place today. I obviously let them in because prior to all this, they were amazing people. They were like second parents to me, being there for me at times that my parents weren't, but I guess they have really become firm on the fact that it was me who set Victoria's marriage ablaze as soon as they came in. They demanded that I pay for Victoria's lawyer fee as an apology. They said more things about me as a person, but what hurt the most was how they said that they wished that my marriage failed as Victoria's did. Alexandra and I stayed quiet for the most part, giving them the respect that I once had for them until they started becoming aggressive towards us. That is when I unfortunately had to threaten to call the cops on them. That was enough to scare them, and they eventually just left before threatening to file a lawsuit on me. Well, I told them good luck with that before I opened the door for them to leave. This was heartbreaking to do, but I guess it was much needed. As for Henry, we're going to be seeing him soon. He had to cancel our meeting for today because he was caught up with things. So until then, I'm trying to calm my nerves. It's been a week since I last posted. I finally got the chance to meet up with Henry along with Alexandra and finally sat us down and explained to us the entire situation. Apparently, the car accident was just the tip of the iceberg. The real reason why their marriage had started going downhill was due to the fact that many of the pranks that Victoria had started to pull started revolving around flirting with her boss, Parker. According to Henry, their pranks started off innocent until about a year back, where they made it their aim to make him jealous. I immediately knew where this was going. Everything just started to click, but I sat there and listened to him as he continued to explain how he slowly started to see signs of cheating, like she had started coming home late, being secretive with her phone. Henry had already become alert, trying to find signs to confirm his suspicions until the challenge I gave Victoria acted as a golden opportunity for him, as her plan to prank him sort of backfired on her. Initially, she was planning to leave her phone unlocked with a photo of her and Parker. Well, her stupid self did not think about how Parker could easily just open her gallery and go through her photos, and when he did that, he saw everything that confirmed his suspicions. But unlike the plan, he stayed quiet, deciding his exit plan in the morning when this all happened. She had messed with his car because she knew he'd be mad at her, but would make him somehow wait. As stupid as it sounds, she really thought it would work, and it is needless to say, it didn't. Thankfully, as everything that happened was recorded on the security footage, it was easy for him to file a report with the cops and sue for damages. Ever since then, Henry has been planning to move out and explain to everyone what happened, including Victoria's parents, who previously had no idea about Victoria's relationship with Parker. Her parents and relatives have apologized to me since. My friendship has blown up within the span of a week, and I know it's going to take me a while to not only get over it, but also accept that I am likely never going to see her. Victoria is currently looking to face at least a couple of months in prison, losing her job and losing her house along with her marriage. I really hope this affair was worth it for her because I know that losing a living man like Henry for a dickhead boss like Parker, who will treat you as nothing but a side piece in something that everyone will afford. As not only I, but Henry and Alexander too embark on this new chapter without Victoria, I hope it all works out. And lastly, thank you all for your amazing advice and judgments. NTA. Who else thinks that there is more to the story except for just the accident? Even with the way OP describes Victoria in a positive light, she gave me a bad vibe. I personally feel like you're not the a hole because you never directly told her that, but you really need to reconsider her friendship with you. NTA, I feel like you should wait until you talk to Henry. It will honestly help you decide for yourself if you're wrong here, and if so, how wrong. I, 32, female, am the eldest child in a family of eight: dad, mom, two brothers, 17, 25, and three sisters, 29, 27, 15. Our parents told me I was adopted when I was 10. All my siblings knew I was adopted, but I was never treated any differently, and I had never felt like I wasn't a part of the family. Some years ago, Grandma, Mom's mom, passed away in her sleep very suddenly without a will. As a result, Mom had a lot of trouble with her siblings when it comes to splitting assets. It took 3 years for everything to settle down, after which Mom told us she would be drawing up a will to prevent the same thing from happening. Mom came home from the lawyers, beaming, saying everything's settled. We were like, okay, great. But in her excitement, she started telling us who's getting what. My 29-year-old sis told her she doesn't have to tell because it's awkward, but Mom says she doesn't want any surprises and wants us to know in no uncertain terms as to what we are getting so we don't fight and contest the will because it's final. After she finished rattling off the list, my siblings and I realized that I had been left out of it, so my 25-year-old brother asked what I'm getting. Mom stopped smiling and asked me if that's what I had asked my brother to say. I said no, I didn't. But I too am wondering why I haven't been mentioned. I don't know what happened, but something seemed to snap in her after I said that. She told me I shouldn't be greedy and should be grateful that she raised me because who knows where I could be and what I'm doing otherwise. I was hurt and told her that it wasn't really about the money, but leaving me out of her will was clearly hurtful, and if she had really seen me as her child, she wouldn't have left me out and said all those awful things. Mom reiterated that the will's final, then excused herself. I left shortly after, but my 15-year-old sis told me that Mom didn't come out of her room until the next day. I tried to resume things as it were, but her speech and text messages to me had become short and curt, and she no longer calls. We used to call each other regularly. Dad told me I shouldn't have been rude and disrespectful to Mom, that I broke her heart and should apologize. I told him what happened, and he said her money, her decision, and that I shouldn't have challenged her. I didn't want to argue, so I said nothing. My siblings have been trying to talk to Mom and Dad about this, but it seems to only make them unhappier. Dad accused me of turning my siblings against them. I haven't visited my parents since the incident with my mom about 3 weeks ago, and we adult kids usually visit every week if nothing comes up. AITA for asking about my share of inheritance, which basically challenges my mom's right to her money and assets and for causing this conflict. NTA, OP, your mom basically told you she doesn't see you as her child. And yet she's the hurt one. I'd distance yourself from her. I'd invite your siblings out more and make more connections outside of your parents. I have a feeling if you have kids, your mom will want to be treated as a grandma, and you'll have to decide if someone who doesn't see you as her daughter should get to be treated as a grandma. This is the kind of thing I think is pretty hard to come back from. I think she messed up, but it's somehow making you into the bad guy. NTA, sure, your mom is entitled to split her estate up however she wants, but she started the conversation about the details of the will, not you. And it's pretty normal for you and your brother to ask the obvious question. Hey, did you forget to mention throwaway? Your mother is a huge AH for going straight to, hey, be grateful we adopted you. That's just cold. And that's an AH reason for being inequitable in her will. On a tangent, stories like this are a great reason to talk about inheritance while everyone's still alive. There's always something that pisses off someone, even if it's not as egregious as this. Dealing with it in the aftermath of someone dying is 10 times worse, judging from the complete debacle of my grandparents' estates. My Uncle Nick was married to my Aunt Lana until her death 7 years ago. They were married before I was even born, so I grew up with her. I was 15 when she died. My cousins, their kids, were 8, 7, and 5. My whole family adored Lana as though she was biologically one of us. They had known her most, if not all, of her life. My uncle met his second wife, Janet, 4 years ago. They started dating a few months later and they got married 2 years ago. Janet has struggled with the fact Aunt Lana is still remembered by the family. We still mark the anniversary of her passing. We remember her birthday and leave stuff on her grave. My cousins talk about her a lot. They say how they wish she was still here. It's not that we dedicate our whole lives to it, but when someone brings up family photos, she's in many of them. Same with old family videos. She was also responsible for the flower garden in my grandparents' house, and there are a lot of memories of her. Janet has asked my parents and grandparents why we feel the need to remember Aunt Lana as though she were their daughter, sister, instead of Nick's wife. Once she grumbled that my youngest cousin spent his art class making something for his mom's grave for Mother's Day instead of making her something. She has asked my parents and grandparents to take down the old family photos that include Lana. It was at my cousin's birthday party a couple of weeks ago where both sets of his grandparents were posing for a photo, and he had brought up his mom that Janet started grumbling and sulking that she had come up. I asked her if she was okay, and she said she hated mentions of that woman, that she had never seen ILS, as fond of a late daughter in law, before that they actually mourned her passing after so long. She said she had figured she would have stepped into her place by now. I told her she needed to understand that Aunt Lana was part of her history, was a big part of mine, and that she was always going to be part of our family and someone we loved. I told her we could love both of them, but as long as she competes with my aunt, she won't ever be able to get close to us because she never tries to hide her feelings. And we can't just act like someone we love didn't exist. She had a tantrum where she called me an insensitive bitch. She told me I should have been dropping to my knees and apologizing for making her feel less than, but instead tell her she has no right to expect her place in the family to be put before a dead woman. I was shocked, as were the rest of the family who were very unhappy with her, especially Uncle Nick. But I do feel kind of bad. AITA? Yo, what? She got mad because your cousin made something for their mother's grave? NTA, if you compete with the dead, even more so when they were well loved, when they were alive, you're going to lose, hands down. NTA, she passed away. It's not like she abandoned them. Also, the fact that your family remembers her so fondly says a great deal of her as a beautiful person. Why should that person go into oblivion? It wouldn't be fair to her or her kids who want to remember her. This new wife should create her own space in the family, but being petty won't help at all. NTA, Lana died. It's not like there was a bitter divorce. She was an active member of the family. Janet should be concerned with what she brings to the family rather than what she's trying to get rid of.